Hey everybody, this is Rustin Rose with Metalholic Magazine and Access Entertainment, and with us today, Michael Dolan of the FTW. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Awesome. I had a great night last night I was out at Summer Stage in Central Park for Mastodon, Clutch, and Graveyard, so it was just a fantastic night, so I'm still kind of reeling from that.
Wow, that sounds like a fantastic show, and,
Yeah.
any type of show like that in New York always has that added bit of coolness to it. I don't know why, but it does, so.
I was surprised, They just, a lot of people were there, and they pulled out all the stops, and it was a real great night.
Fantastic. So, the FTW is a bit of a new direction for you musically. Tell us about what inspired you to put this project together.
Well, for a good 10, 12 years, I was in a band called the Turbo ACs. I played bass, and Turbo ACs is more of I would say, a greaser, punk, kind of surf guitar band. And the whole time I was in the Turbo ACs, I still loved hard rock and heavy metal. I was constantly going to see Motorhead and, the Melvins and Monster Magnet and any kind of thing like that, even though the Turbos weren't really in that direction. And then, later on, I guess when I was done with my tenure with those guys, I felt myself, being drawn more towards singing, and I started singing songs on Turbo C's records, like the last two albums I sang, and a lot of people were telling me, I should sing more. So me and some of my friends here in New York were just working on just fun projects, and I put together a thing called Gimme Head, and we were a band that just did all Motorhead covers.
Right.
And then Gimme Head turned into Lizzie Head, and we started doing Thin Lizzy nights and St. Patrick's Day with some other cats. And then, I kind of ran my course with the Turbo C's. It was, we kind of plateaued. I felt like I plateaued with those guys. I didn't really think I was going to do anything more creatively. I didn't really think that we were going to get any more successful than when we were doing. So I decided I really wanted to do something to get more into the hard rock, into the heavy metal. So I announced that I had started the FTW with some of my friends, in the Major Nelson, guitar player, and I didn't even have anything written. I just had an idea that I wanted to move more in a harder direction, a heavier direction. I was listening to a lot of early Grand Funk and Cactus and Deep Purple and all the stuff that I loved, and then eventually, it took some time, but it turned into what it turned into, and I got myself J.J. Mraz on drums, and then we just completed the first album, Vendetta Kind of Mood, that just came out.
Well, let's talk about the debut album. First off, I love the title. Is there a story there?
Yeah, actually, it's from that famous scene in True Romance between Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper, when Christopher Walken plays this crime lord, this gang, this mafioso type, comes in and basically threatens to kill Dennis Hopper if he doesn't give him the right kind of information about where his stolen narcotics were. He says, "You've got me in a vendetta kind of mood," and it's as a warning. And then eventually, at the end of the scene, which is a great back and forth between the two of them, Walken winds up putting a bullet in his head. So I just always loved that scene, and I love to do Christopher Walken impressions, and it just, for me, that just meant a lot, just from the movie, and then just in life in general, because the album is more. There's a lot of songs on there that are just kind of an outcry about different things that can definitely put somebody in the vendetta mood.
Well, when I first listened to the album, I've heard people talk about the Nawabum flavor of it all, and there's definitely that ethos there and everything, and some of the punks. When I first heard it, I sort of thought Motorhead meets Dust. Do you remember Dust?
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, wow, that's a great compliment. Holy shit. Yeah, I love Dust. I mean, that's one of those bands that, back in the day, somebody working in a record shop would turn you on to Dust. They would see what you had been buying and say, "Oh, did you know about this band that had Marky Ramone before he was in before the Ramones were even an idea?" And they just played this heavy, proto metal or whatever you want to call it. But
right.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wish we could sound as good as Dust.
No, it's just very full sound and just sort of that thing. It's like if if you combine those two in a modern feel, that's what the FTW sounded like to me. So,
oh, rad. Thanks, man.
But
awesome.
I also hear, and this is sort of weird, I also hear New York. Is it weird to say that there is just something about that city that its presence becomes like an extra member of the band?
Well, that's also, I've heard that again from somebody. They were talking about the New York attitude coming through in the music or something of that nature. And I am a native New Yorker. I was born in the Bronx. I grew up in the city. I was going to CBGB's hardcore matinees when I was a teenager, and I got into, some of those early bands that were, like Agnostic Front and the Cro-Mags and the Bad Brains and all that stuff, which is just such a passionately, righteously angry music. So I think that, if anything, that could inspire what sounds like New York in the music of the band. I would think that it's just kind of a confrontational, don't fuck with me kind of expression.
Right. Well, and there's definitely an angry edge to your lyrical content to my ears too. So.
Yeah, but I agree. But I would like to put it in a way where there's anger, but we're doing something about it. We're living through it. It's not just an explosion of rage for no reason. There's definitely there's so many ways that people are wronged, and so there's a lot of how can I explain it? People are getting called out, basically.
Well, nice. So now, how does the songwriting process work in the band? Because I know you write, obviously, and you got the riff master there with the Major Nelson. So
yeah, Nelson is just a beast, man. It's like I wouldn't been. There's no way that I would have been able to do anything without him. Lyrically, I handle all the lyrics, and then mostly it's just collaborations of stuff that we'll go in the studio and we'll just start working on ideas and I definitely got a partner in crime here with this music, because Nelson he's a guitar player's guitar player, and it's very, I know a lot of guitar players, and a lot of guys are just so full of themselves and braggadocious, and Nelson is he's just a humble guy, and he's such an incredible talent. So I'm grateful and blessed because he's just he's a beast. Really.
Absolutely. Now, one of my favorite tracks on the album is Billy Bats. What's the story behind that one?
Billy Bats was actually the first song that we wrote together, and it's kind of the title is inspired by Goodfellas,
mm-hmm.
because there's that Billy Bats is that character in Goodfellas that comes into the bar after he gets out of prison and starts messing with Joe Pesci's character, and he pushes him over the line, and he winds up killing him. And so I had my own personal Billy Bats characters in my life who I felt like didn't deserve, just kind of bought their way into situations and didn't deserve the accolades, didn't deserve what was in front of them. And again, it's more of a calling out of that kind of those kind of folks, without naming names, but it's definitely, even in the vocal delivery there's like little nods to the Cro-Mags' Age of Quarrel and some of the ways that I deliver the lyrics. And so yeah, that's kind of it's funny that you picked that song out, because that's the embryo right there because it's funny when you listen to the record, there's all these different songs some songs are really old, like a song like Billy Bats is the first song we wrote when we first started, and then there's a song like Bleed Out, which was pretty much the last thing we put together before the record, and you could kind of hear the influence, and also you could kind of hear the growth, because Billy Bats is kind of more like a Misfits attack song in the rap, how rapid it is and everything, and that's kind of what the Turbo ACs were doing, and
it sounds like obviously you're a big movie buff too.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's it's just one of these things. It's like movies and comic books and motorcycles and just all that stuff. It's definitely, you can definitely feel the influences or get the influences. But then there's even some songs that there's, like we have this song called Minotaur. It's the fourth song on the record, and it has nothing to do with the Minotaur or Greek mythology or Maze or anything. It was just the name of the song was like it was kind of the working title of the song, because when we started putting Minotaur together, that was like I think it was probably one of the longest tracks that we were working on, and it was really heavy and doomy sounding. So it was almost like a tongue-in-cheek to call it Minotaur, because there's so many of these doom style bands or these stoner bands that have these epic long, songs about prehistoric creatures and things of that nature. So, but just the title just stuck, and it it is what it is. So.
Well, now, most people in hard rock and the metal world aren't familiar with you yet, because the type of music you did before obviously wasn't in that niche, as you said. But so by way of introduction, tell us a little bit about your path to music. Who or what, because it's not always just music. Who or what inspired you? Was there a moment of epiphany when you knew this was your path, or?
Oh, I think it's just been my whole life growing up in always having music around, 45s and record players and constantly listening to the radio and being inspired by the stuff that was people in the 70s that were constantly on television, and Elvis and Kiss, and then I had an older brother, and of course your older brother has records, and your older brother turns you on to AC/DC and Judas Priest and Black Sabbath and Rush and all these kind of things that you listen to, and then eventually, I guess because of whatever rebellion was going on in my life, I veered more towards hardcore and punk rock music, and then so for me the hard rock and the heavy metal was always and it's that way for a lot of folks, I think, in the hardcore and punk thing. And a lot of people don't want to admit it. They want to think that all I've been listening to my whole life is Bad Brains and Cro-Mags and nothing else besides hardcore and Black Flag and stuff. But before there was that kind of music, there was Ted Nugent and Motorhead and AC/DC and Dio and those kind of bands. And so I got into punk and hardcore when I was a teenager and started going to CBGB's matinees and getting into all the incredible bands that came through from Suicidal Tendencies and Descendants and some of the bands from DC, and just it was a small definitely like that kind of lifestyle. Just once I started going to these shows and seeing these bands, there was really no turning back for me. I didn't really, just everything kind of went out the window. Education and schoolwork, and all I was really concerned about was the next. Who was I going to go see next, and records and all that, just that whole world.
Well, there's a nice little segue in there, because I was going to ask you next to sort of give us 2 or 3 albums that changed your life or helped inform your musical path.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would, like I said, I've mentioned this a few times, is the Cro-Mags, New York City band Cro-Mags, their first record, whether you even the strength of their demo tape alone, the demo tape for a while that was being circulated, and then they put out a full-length album, I think it's like 86 or 85, called Age of Quarrel, and it's just kind of the catalyst, or this for me, definitely a musical catalyst, and it's kind of this place that goes in between the confrontational, angry punk music, and then this whole thrash metal, because the guitar on the record is incredible, and the song structures is just I can't even describe how powerful that album. It's like a seminal, one of those records that just can never get tired of it. It never fails to disappoint me. Anytime I listen to it, it has a biblical, almost Sunday religious power over me to listen to it, and because it also has this whole calling out of all these indignations and things and wrongs in the world and it's also been just these guys, the Cro-Mags, they went out, they started going on tour with Motorhead and going on tour with heavier bands and different punk bands, so they definitely kind of crossed the line genre-wise. So that's definitely one that I can think of. And then I always go back to those it's hard to even say, but the first the first Black Sabbath record is just perfect musically and sonically. And these guys, I think they went in and recorded that record in an afternoon with barely any overdubs, and it was just pretty much all the stuff that they were doing raw in the clubs when they were touring and going to Germany and playing in those different nightclubs and bars that were in Hamburg. And when they came in and laid it down, it's just the most raw thing. And I don't even know how many tracks it was, but it still can stand up to anything. This, 40 some odd years later.
Right.
And
So we've mentioned Motorhead several times, obviously, while we've been talking, and I saw your review of Motorhead's Another Perfect Day.
Yeah.
In your mind, what is the seminal Motorhead album?
Oh man, it's I would probably have to say that it's got to be it has to be No Sleep Until Hammersmith, because all those other records they had, Ace of Spades and just, people seem to, Ace of Spades is an incredible song, but that they had that song on Ace of Spades called Dance. And Dance is kind of a goofy song about dancing till your shoes are hot, and so the Another Perfect, the No Sleep Until Hammersmith record is just it's a cross of all of the incredible tracks that were on Bomber and Overkill and Ace of Spades, and even some of the really early weird kind of pseudo psychedelic. These guys are coming off the tail end of Hawkwind, and they did the title track Motorhead, and so that's really what it's all about. And when people experience Motorhead, it's like Motorhead is a band you see live. It's the records are one thing, but live it's all about the double bass and that classic lineup of Filthy Animal Taylor and Fast Eddie Clarke. And so for me, it's that kind of speaks for that whole beginning period. That's just and I think people knew too, because when it came out in England, it went straight to number one in the charts, because they had such a rabid fan base, and they weren't one of those bands that were when they started, people said if this band is going to move next to your house, or your lawn is going to die. They weren't exactly anybody's favorites, and they had to create it for themselves. And they were another band that they were hanging out with the Damned, they were hanging out with the Sex Pistols. There's just some kind of urban legend that Lemmy showed Sid Vicious how to play some notes on the bass, and so they were kind of a band that everybody could get into, the hard rock folks, the heavy metal folks, the punk rock folks, and that kind of goes even to today. It's just one of those things where they cross all these different genre lines, and so they're a powerful rock and roll band. They're not a heavy metal band by any stretch of the imagination. They are.
Well, Lemmy says that at every show.
Yeah,
we are Motorhead, and we play rock and roll.
Exactly. That's what I even wanted to say about this band when because I wanted to tell some of the people in Germany and the previous audiences that I used to have for the Turbo Seas that this is, I just decided to call it like a powerful new rock and roll album, and you could make what you want with it. Because people make this, people definitely, even the producer of the album, Dean Rispler, from Cosmo Demonic, and he plays bass with the New York Legends, the Dictators now. He was saying how, this stuff has a definitely Nawabum sound. It sounds like Tank, and other people have compared it to Diamond Head and stuff like that. But we're not out there wearing full studded gauntlets and tight jeans. It's just, and I don't want to be kind of stuck in a situation where people think we're doing some kind of throwback thing. This is just the music that, when, communicating with Nelson and JJ, the drummer. So we grew up with punk and hardcore and metal, and we're constantly still going to see those kind of bands when they come through. So this is how everything kind of spoke to us. And then we put it into the Vendetta Kind of Mood.
Everybody loves their labels. All right, before we get out of here, one final question, just, for fun. In this age of Uber technology, many fans spend more time watching the shows through their cell phone's lens than they do simply enjoying the show. As a performer and a fan, how do you feel about this? I mean, I'm sure you probably saw a lot of it last night at that show.
Oh, yeah, I did. I kind of, to myself, I took a couple of pictures during Mastodon set, but then I waited till the set was over to post them on social media, because it is I'm more concerned about people talking when the band is playing. That's the thing that just gets me so angry. During Clutch's set, there was these two lunkheads that were behind me, and they were just talking during the whole set. And the guy was big too. He had a big cigar, and I turned around and I told him to be quiet. And I was adamant. I made it very obvious that I was really angry. And then I think he wound up vomiting because he was really drunk. So then all the people around me afterwards tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey man, I want to thank you for telling that guy to shut up, because he was really annoying everybody." I mean, the technology, it's just, I don't know. It's a bit of a drain now when people are just looking at everything through their phone. I tried, like I said last night, I took some pictures during the set. There was a really cool shot of the guys, like both the guitar players in Mastodon were right up, because we were really close to the stage. They were right up on the stage, and it was like I took a picture of it, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until it's over, and I have dinner, and then I'll post it up later, because you lose the experience. I think people are losing the experience if they're glued to their devices,
Exactly. I mean, a few pictures is one thing, but I mean, literally, when you're trying to videotape every song, and it's like, how are you enjoying the show?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
And how is your little? I know the technology is great these days, but honestly, if you wanted to watch it, have somebody professionally videotape it and then buy the DVD.
Awesome. Michael Dolan, the FTW, the debut album, A Vendetta Kind of Mood. I still love that. I got to go watch that movie again now.